Hi, Stephanie. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to hearing your wonderful story about your wine and all your travels.
Well, thank you, Oscar. It's lovely to be here. It's kind of a fun way to share with your audience a story about our little brand, and we hope to kind of teach you a little bit more about it along the way.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your background, Stephanie.
Sure. So, I came into wine a little bit different than the traditional winemaker route. I started out actually in a WSET course. I really wanted to be sort of in the sommelier program. I really wanted to basically learn more about wine. And along the way, as I was studying through the courses, I realized I wanted to be closer to the wine. And so at the time, we were living in the Bay Area, and my husband and I, we just kind of took a wild flyer and we're like, let's do this. Let's just move to wine country and try and get jobs in the wine industry, and we'll just see what happens. And so we moved up to the Anderson Valley in Northern California, and I walked into a tasting room that I was a big fan of their wines, and I said, "Hi, you want to hire me?" And they're like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Yeah, I don't know if you're hiring, but I really like your wine. I will do such a great job selling. You want to hire me?" And they're like, "Okay, well, do you want to start tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." So started working in the tasting room, and then slowly kind of, I'd start showing up for my shifts earlier and earlier as harvest started, showing up on 6 a.m. basically, and just saying,
right,
"Do you need any hoses cleaned? Do you need any tanks washed out? Whatever you need, I'm here." And so kind of basically worked my way into a harvest internship position and worked there for a couple of years. And eventually over time, got more and more responsibilities. And after about 4 years, I landed my first full-time winemaker position working for Roger Scamania at his Signal Ridge Vineyard. Wow. And it's a mountaintop vineyard. It's in the Mendocino Ridge appellation. And they call it the Islands in the Sky because it's so high up that the valley will be socked in fog, and you have these little peaks poking out of the clouds, and it just, from above, it looks like islands in the sky.
Wow.
And kind of extreme farming, beautiful, beautiful Pinot Noir vineyard, and a little bit of Zinfandel mixed in, and just kind of followed that passion through. And that's sort of how I got into winemaking. I don't have a traditional university background in winemaking. It's just sort of learning from the masters.
Well, I think that's one of the best ways to learn, right? I mean, to give you entry into a winery, just when you show up, you're like, "Hey, I want to get a job here and I'll do anything." I mean, I don't think a lot of people do that normally. They want to go some type of training in school, and they'll go apply somewhere to do internship. But I think it paid off. You bet. You did that, and it ended up doing it.
Well, and a lot of it, I was very lucky. My mentor, Ryan Hodgins, is such an incredible, he's such a talented winemaker. And the way he taught even the lowliest interns like myself was, he didn't just tell us what to do. He really did explain why we're doing it. He explained the entire process all the way through, so that when it went to do the procedure, I knew why I was doing it, not just doing it out of rote memory, oh, do this. It was with purpose. So a lot of the credit to having a really great mentor who was willing to take a chance.
I think that's it. You said a keyword, having a mentor that actually, is relatable and not just telling you what to do, but actually showing you. And I mean, that makes a big impact in people's lives. And
absolutely. Every time I talk with him, I still, if it weren't for you, and he's like, "I'll stop. It's been long enough." And I said, but he was a great support early on.
So how many years were you there?
In the Anderson Valley. Lived there for 10 years. I took a couple breaks from harvest while I was having children, and but you always got right back to it afterwards. I think I was made wine at Signal Ridge for 2013, 14, 15, and 16 vintages, and then a funny little thing happened. My business partner Roger is very well known in the industry, and he was contacted by Whole Foods in the Midwest region to do a regional program. And they said, can you make us a rosé? And in his mind, he's like, yeah, I've got Pinot Noirs and Fendel. We can make a rosé. And I'm like, oh no, we want you to make a French rosé. And he was like, okay, let me see what I can do. And he calls me, he's like, Steph, do you want to make a French rosé? And I just, my jaw dropped, my eyes, like the auga eyes. I was like, I definitely want to make a French rosé. What are you saying? What does this mean? And he's like, well, get on an airplane, go to France. We know some people there, and see what you can come up with. And that's how we kind of is the genesis story of French Blue, is just getting over to France and looking around. As we were talking about earlier, it was during the rosé craze. Everyone was just pumping rosé into the marketplace, and especially coming from France, Provence was very, very popular. And it was kind of hard to get a foot in there, and we started realizing, we're making wine for an American market. It's not a French brand for France. It's a wine for America. And what does that mean to us? And so we started thinking outside of Provence, one of the most prestigious and well-known wine regions in the world is Bordeaux. Let's go there and see what we can find. And what we found was magical. There's most people, or at least my idea of Bordeaux rosé was more of a claret, just kind of really dark, almost red, like halfway between a rosé and a red wine. And I was like, well, that's not what we were thinking about making. We really want the philosophy, the style of rosé to be similar to Provence rosé, but made with the grape varietals from Bordeaux. And that's when we kind of landed upon the Cabernet Franc grape. And that's really has been the key to the success of the brand, is rests in that grape and having it grown in the Entrée du Mer area of Bordeaux. It's just a fantastic grape. When it finds the right spot, can make a truly exceptional rosé.
And I really love how your transition went from all these great events that took place. But I think it's always has to do with a lot your attitude and being so positive and energetic about how passionate you feel about something, that people pick up on that, right? And that's what they're like, we're going to give her a chance and let's see her work. And you did it. That's a really good thing. So now you're in France, you're in Provence, you're in the other southern regions, and there you come out, you're like, we want this type of color, we don't want the too dark color or too pink of a hue color. What was your next steps when you found the right color that took you now to coming up with a name? Like, you already got your grapes, you did your blend, it tastes good. What was your next step to think about what you're going to call it?
Well, and so that was kind of a fun story, and it almost, again, was a stroke of luck. Again, making it, knowing that our audience was American, right? We don't want to call it Chateau something you can't pronounce, because we wanted it to truly be an accessible wine that people could share amongst friends and just be really comfortable around. And so we started looking around France for inspiration, and everywhere in France, there's just this overwhelming color of blue. It's everywhere. the French football team is the blues. The French flag is red, white, and blue. The blue representing royalty. It actually dates back to the 700s or something, when the first king of France, Clovis, was like in a battle and he lost his shield and things were going really poorly, and someone handed him a blue shield and the tides changed, and all of a sudden he combated all of the kind of local tribes and really unified France, and he owed it to his blue shield. So from that point on, like, France has been blue.
Wow.
It's there's one moment, I think Roger and I were walking through Paris, and every house and shop we'd walk by, right? There's just blue doors everywhere, like every home, every shop, it's just blue door after blue door. And it was always a specific color of blue. And something just popped in Roger's mind. I was like, it's called French blue, it's a thing in France. It's, obviously easy to say, but it also has significance. It kind of connects back to the country and just the importance of the color dating back hundreds of years. So it's actually also, little known fact, Pantone color there's one called French blue. So we just thought it was kind of a fun name and had our little character on there, and the package just kind of came together. And at this time, I think for the Midwest, Whole Foods program is just a 1,000 case run. So it was a really small intro. So we didn't know what to expect. So we didn't realize our little French blue was going to blossom into something bigger.
That is a great story. Great story. I think I got to take you to Vegas with me, because you're definitely very fortunate and lucky to be around with. You don't know what could happen next.
I went there one time and immediately, I think I was like $20. That's it. I got $20 on this, and it was gone, I think, instantly. So I'll have to find a different outlet to share our luck together. But
yeah, it'll probably just be wine. That's what we're going to have to do, right?
Exactly.
That's it. You have a proven track record when it comes to wine. In the wine industry, you're golden. You're the lucky seven. You're lucky seven on the wine. So now you got your label. You have great wine, and you started your distribution in the U.S., right? It was with 1,000 cases, and with that, how did it skyrocket from 1,000 cases to where you're at now?
So the 1,000 cases arrived, and about 2 weeks later, we were getting calls from distributors, and the Whole Foods buyer is like, your program's late. Where's the wine? And we're like, well, we sent it. It arrived. And they were just like, well, we don't have any. It's gone. We're like, well, what do you mean? And we kind of started looking through it. And indeed, the 1,000 cases has pretty much blown through in about 2-3 weeks. It was just gone.
Wow.
It was probably a heat spike. People just needed liquid refreshment, but something about the moment, the rosé craze, it was a success on its own, right? And so that kind of caught the attention of Whole Foods Global in Austin, and they called us out of the blue. It's always scary getting a phone call from someone that kind of prestigious, and they're just like, hi, we'd like to talk to you. I was like, okay, let me breathe for a minute. I'll be right back. Can you come in and talk with us? And they do a fantastic spring promo every year. They do a rosé promo, and they invited us. They said, this is something we'd like you to, be a part of. And so the following year, I believe is 2016, they invited us to be in the spring promo. And again, we were quite lucky, and it wound up being the #1 selling rosé of that time period. It just, again, I think the accessibility of the packaging, the great value, and the good taste. I hope played a part of that. And it just did really, really well. They invited us back again the next year. And kind of at this point, it started becoming a very serious brand. At this point, I think we were maybe up to about 8,000 to 10,000 cases.
Wow.
And that's one thing that they'd asked us, they're like, we know you make a smaller amount. Is it possible to expand the program so that we can have it in our spring promo? And it dawned on me as I can make small lots from California, but if this brand's growing, I need to think about moving there and being amongst the vines, being closer to there. And after about 10 seconds of conversation with my husband, he was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's get ourselves over there. So that was sort of what initiated our transition over to France, was just wanting to take the brand and make it, bigger, not necessarily bigger, but just have more contact with it, knowing that it was going to be bigger, and wanting to have a more direct influence working with the vineyard, with the grape growers, with the wineries, that we were using their facility and really having a bigger impact on the wine. It's easier to do, obviously, from France than it was from California.
So everything you source is in France. You have nothing sourced in the US for fruit.
For French Blue, yeah, exactly. It's all French. It's all 100% from the Bordeaux appellation.
Okay.
And in fact, where we sourced fruit from is the Entrée du Mer. So I know you know this, but Bordeaux's in the very southwest of France.
Mm-hmm.
You get the Gironde estuary, and then it splits into the Dordogne and the Garonne River, and the kind of the triangle that is made in the middle there is the Entrée du Mer. And it's quite different. Left bank, you have, it's very flat, kind of swampy, that they've drained, and now it's lovely gravelly. Right bank, you have kind of limestone outcroppings. And then in the middle, the Entrée du Mer really just rises up, really nice, beautiful, gentle hillsides, combination of soils, but it's a white wine only appellation. So we couldn't call our rosé made from there Entrée du Mer, which was fine. Actually, Bordeaux is a little bit more well known, so we deferred to that. But what we started to realize that something that the importance I can't understate is that looking at the Entrée du Mer, knowing it was a white wine specialty region, we said, well, if they can make great white wines, what can it do to a rosé? If we take Cabernet Franc, because there is a lot of red wine still planted there, right? What if we use those grapes to make a rosé, knowing how beautiful and aromatic the white wines that come from there are? And that's kind of where we really lit upon this idea of, the soils there. You still get a little bit of limestone, but there's also some clay and some sand. And the different varietals and the different soils really play part into the texture, the acidity levels, the minerality, the aromatics are really intense there, as seen by red rosé and white wines. I think that the red wines, they're a lot more elegant and soft than either the right bank or the left bank. They don't have that intensity. Likewise, the white wines do have it. They really pull from the soils and have just these incredible, the aromatics, the body, the intensity is really present.
So, and that's where you also do your Sauvignon Blanc, right? It's all from the same place.
Exactly.
And so would you like to, should we do a tasting of your Sauvignon Blanc?
I think we should.
Yeah. You teed it up with such beautiful, for us just to ignore it would be a sin.
Sauvignon Blanc that we use does come from slightly sandier parts of the vineyard. And what that does, Obviously, you get great drainage, but we tend to find in sandier parts of the world where the wines get just an incredible aromatic expression. To me, the Bordeaux white it's very classically Bordeaux in flavor. You get a lot of kind of citrus, tropical, gooseberry. That's a really common aroma here. Just super intense. Just kind of when you smell it, taste it, it's a powerful kind of hit you in the face. It has one thing that I like about Bordeaux that sometimes is not present in Sauvignon Blancs from New Zealand, other parts of the world, is that it does have this herbal character. Mm-hmm. It has a hint of grassiness, almost verbena. It just kind of has this element to it that makes it Bordeaux. It gives it its thumbprint. But I want to hear what you think.
Oh, I like you said, I pick up a little hint of the herb. I was trying to define what's the herb coming from, but you explained it pretty well on that. The kiwi and the peach. I mean, that's what just the bouquet of it that I pick up. I love that it's not heavy on alcohol nose either. It's very fruit forward, but it's very sunny in your face, right? It's just very subtle. And it's just you really enjoy the aromatics. You just want to keep taking it in. So it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's part of the cool part about the Entrée du Mer is because it's between the two rivers and very close to the Atlantic. But we have this kind of peninsula dividing us between the Atlantic that has this huge forest, the forest of the Medoc. And so it protects us from the really harsh winds. We really have a generally season to season, very even climate. We don't have a whole lot of, it rains in the winter and the spring, but in the summertime, not a whole lot of moisture, and the gentle rolling hillsides kind of allow for a lot of sun exposure, a lot of wind to kind of go through the vineyards, and it really maintains a consistent quality year to year. And so we're able to kind of pick when we want, at the peak ripeness. And it's 100% stainless steel fermented. So we keep those aromatic components in check, really kind of keep everything nicely protected during fermentation.
So do you change anything year to year to make the product even better, or is it just same process, very consistent? The consistency level, how is that?
So 2019 was our very first vintage of Sauvignon Blanc. It had kind of been a dream of mine. As soon as a typical winemaker, I started with the rosé, and I was like, oh, and we can do this, and we can do this. And, my eyes were, bigger than my stomach. So last year was actually, 2019 release last year was our first vintage and is 100% Sauvignon Blanc. Okay. And we do have the ability to play around with some Semillon. For me, at this time, at least with the 2019 and 2020 vintage, the pure Sauvignon Blanc really was the flavor profile we were going for. Just sort of relax, hang out with your friends, picnic, great with seafood, soft cheeses. It was the sort of the simple style we were going through, having Semillon in there. Absolutely stunning, but it changed the personality, I guess. It wasn't necessarily kind of in keeping with the taste profile I mentally had aspired to go for. But it might be something in the future that we kind of keep as a tool in the toolbox in case we need to change it up a little bit.
No problem. I think, obviously I love the color, very nice, pretty color. You obviously have great aromatics, very nice and clean, crisp, it does want you just to finish off and have another taste of it, right? I could see going through this bottle pretty quick, and there's no excuse. We think about the weather. We're like, no, there's no excuse. Forget about it. If it's raining or if it's sunny, this is such a great bottle. You can just go through it pretty good, pretty fast, right? So congratulations. And how do the French people view your wine?
So we do have, in Bordeaux, we have a friend that has sort of a distributor. They don't really have the 3-tier system here, but it's basically a distributor that calls on a lot of the restaurants, and it has been decently well received. Some of the smaller wine shops tend to carry it. Some of the bigger grocery stores, we don't make enough volume to where they would actually be able to bring it in, but it's been well received. I think some of it's oddly, it's a fact that I kind of don't realize all the time, but someone pointed out to me with our rosé, it's actually one of the largest brands of Bordeaux rosé in the world. And that was just kind of a shocking fact to me that they make each chateau or negociant, they'll make their own rosé, but just in smaller quantities. A lot of people really focus on the red wines and white wine production here, but to know that French Blue, even the size that we are, is not all that big in comparison with some of the brands of the world, but that we are one of the largest Bordeaux rosé brands was a pretty cool thing to realize.
Well, that is great. I mean, think about it. You have their name, so they have to be proud of that. You have the colors, and you're producing amazing wines from one of the most selective regions in France, right? So why wouldn't you not be on their table as well versus just also the U.S.? And normally it's always that. I always think about how receptive are people within their own country of their wines, because that sometimes that could even be a downfall. They're like, we don't like it here. It doesn't meet our standards. Or it's great. It's amazing, right? Because a different perspective, you as an American winemaker going to France and then creating this product for Americans, right? Because I think that could be a big turn off for some people as well from those regions. Like, why you're making it and sending it out somewhere else versus keeping it within your own region. So
absolutely. And Bordeaux is the Bordelais love their Bordeaux wine. When one does go to a restaurant here, the wine list is 99% Bordeaux wines, and then they'll have champagne and one Provence rosé, and that's it. It's a very protected region, so they are very into kind of protecting their local identity. But I think with this, because we do work with such great growers who are generations old, that they're maybe a little more forgiving of an American taking a little bit of pride in. But I think they're also very, one thing so the very first American embassy abroad was actually right after the Revolutionary War, was in Bordeaux and established by Benjamin Franklin. So the friendship between Bordeaux and America goes back a very, very long time. And there's actually really, really cool, at the very top of the Medoc Peninsula, there's a statue that was built after World War I, or not a statue, a tower, that directly looks across at New York City at this Statue of Liberty. And it was as a sign of friendship. Obviously, the Statue of Liberty was a gift from France, but they built this tower here as a thank you to all the American troops that fought during World War I. And just to there's just such kind of a community between how the French, especially in Bordeaux, kind of view America. So it's actually been a great collaboration.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear. So now that you've talked so much about your famous rosé, let's taste it.
All right.
So this is a Cab Franc Merlot, right? And this is your 2019 as well, right?
Exactly. late. So the 2020 should be in stores soon, but it's still a little early. But we wanted to make a light, crisp, refreshing wine, something that made you want to go back for another sip, simply just made you feel happy. Not necessarily the wine, the taste. Like it was just a really bright, fun wine, something that you don't have to necessarily put away for a long time. It's a rosé, just open it on any day of the week, with friends, with family, or just with dinner. It's a very accessible wine. The Cabernet Franc is a wonderful, wonderful grape to work with, especially for rosé, in that it has an incredibly long growing season. Mm-hmm. It really needs a warmer climate to reach peak ripeness. But in doing so, if we harvest it a little bit early, we still can have really nice, big, beautiful acid at a relatively lower alcohol content. So we don't have to wait for it to get fully sugar ripe. Mm-hmm. We still get the phenolic ripeness. A lot of the really pretty aromatics come from the Cabernet Franc. The structure, the texture, the kind of crunchy minerality to it comes from the Cabernet Franc. And then to keep that in check, we have the Merlot, which is kind of a blousy, bigger, just like a supple, just round flavor. It has a lot of nice strawberry fruit. That's actually one of our sort of secrets there, is just a hint of Merlot in there really brings out this nice red fruit flavor. And they just complement each other well, the way they play back and forth. And it's a combination. In some years, we do use a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon, just depending on kind of how we're feeling. We work pretty hard on the blends. And this year in 2019, our feeling was the 70% Cabernet Franc, 30% Merlot, just really hit what we wanted it to.
And what prompted you to really pick your color of the rosé?
So for me, it kind of has, when you see rosé, a lot of times you get visual cues on what the dryness is going to be like. And so kind of with those darker, more extracted, it tends to be a little bit sweeter also, I find. And we wanted people to be able to look at this and realize, it's similar in hue to a Provence, maybe not quite as kind of orange coppery, but at least with the lightness of it. And that would sort of be a visual cue to people to know that it is that light, fresh, dry, crisp style rosé. So to do that, we normally about 12 hours skin contact. We actually do it in cold temperatures to limit how fast the extraction happens. So just to really, again, protect the aromas as well. But we don't want too much skin contact because we do want to keep it that nice, pretty blush color.
No, you did. It's a beautiful color. And even when I see it in the retail space, it really does stand out. And I never understood that it was the darkers are more sweeter until after the fact. And when I usually, that's what I usually look at now. I'm like, it's a lighter rosé. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit more dry. And I think I love the flower bouquet that you just smell from this, right? So it's like, I feel like you have spring in a glass, right? It just smells beautiful. Nice. I love the smell of our flowers in our garden right now. It's like spring's trying to peek out. It's just bright and it smells really, really nice. And I see, said the secret of the Merlot, right? It's the strawberries. That's why you really want to get that hint out of that. But it's a very real balance. Even the acidity, it's not too over. There's like not puckering in your mouth when you take it. You're like, okay, it's a little bit too much. Your tannins, for you to get this color of the level is, you guys, it seems like a lot of work just to make this beautiful color. So consistent, because when you look at all your other years, and that, I don't think the color really has changed as much. It's very consistent.
It's something that we work effortlessly at. Thank you for noticing. That's very kind. It is of utmost importance because we do want the color. You shop with your eyes first.
Right.
When you're picking out a wine, you kind of see the label. It's got to have something interesting. Maybe you want to kind of grab it and explore it more. But also the color of the wine, even before you taste it, says a lot about what's inside of the glass, and having the color match the perception of flavor, it was really important to us, really having those two things align.
I've been trying a lot now because, I've always looked at rosé just to find the right rosé that would be a little bit more drier, have fruit forward, not too sweet, so it could complement, because I love eating spicy foods. And I'm like, how do I complement that little sugar level of the sweetness, usually with such great flavors from, of rosés being out in the market. And I've been drinking your wine with a lot of spicy food. And it's like, normally I would just think, I'm usually going to have it with some cheeses, a salad, something light, like a starter, right? Not an appetizer of some type. Now I'm like, this is a full meal. Like when I'm having something spicy, I'm like, I want to complement it. And it pairs so well. Before I was just thinking, at the wineries, we're normally just, you pair with cheeses and strawberries and things already complement what's in the bottle, right?
Right.
So I think taking it from there to as a Latino, eating spicy foods, and it just became it's so rich. I really enjoy that. And just think a lot of my Hispanic and Latino chef guys are like, we pair this Sauvignon Blanc with this spicy food and this and that. I'm like, I should try that to see if it really does make a difference, or they're just trying to sell you some type of a gimmick, like, hey, try this with this food, just because they want to push more of that food, right? But when I actually do it, I was like, wow, I was really surprised how your structure of your rosé really did make a big difference on my palate when I'm complementing it with something spicy. And I don't think you can get along with when it's too sweet. You really can't do that. You have to separate everything. What you want to, how you want to have your meal, more of an appetizer type versus an entree. And I think your wine is both of them. It's all season, all year round, anytime. And I think you guys have accomplished that. So.
Right on. Thank you. It's fun to hear that. I'm a very, very big fan of spicy food, and that's one cuisine that's lacking in my life lately. They don't have a lot of spicy food here in France, except for pimenta espelette. But when I do travel back to the States, I always bring back just absolute, a suitcase full of hot sauces. And so I know well the pairing of the rosé with spicy food, because it does go well. I agree 100%. There's something about it's one of those magical things about wine and food where you don't always understand why they pair well together, but they just do, and you're just like, I'm just gonna let that be. I don't need to know anymore. It just does work.
Yeah, I think sometimes, because when we are grocery shopping and you're going out wine shopping at the grocery store, a label can only tell you so much. Now with access to our cell phones, we look up what it pairs well with and so forth. But sometimes it doesn't really live up to that. It sounds great, but when you try it, it doesn't taste that great, right? So I think you got to pretty much experiment on your own, or just when you find the right pairing of your Sauvignon Blanc rosé, because we know a big body of big, bold, heavy cab or a full body Cab Franc, we know we can pair those with certain meats and so forth. Big proteins, right? The pastas and so forth with certain wine. But my challenge has always been, which I have a lot of Sauvignon Blancs and rosés that I normally don't even drink, because for me it was always, what do I want? I just don't want to open up a bottle of rosé and enjoy it with a salad. I'm not really a big salad person, or some just cheese during the day when you're going for lunch or something, right? It wasn't until I tried your brand that I really started pairing it with spicy foods, because I saw how well balanced it was. I'm like, man, let me see if this actually does work. because when I tried it with other brands, I was like, nah, it didn't work. It was just too sweet, right? It was either too sweet, or the acidity levels were just, it wouldn't pair well with my food. And I love habaneros. I love serranos, so it's like, that has to be, regardless of what I'm eating, I'm like, throw some habaneros in there, cut them up, put it in there, right?
Absolutely.
So when I look at it, like you mentioned in France, it's not a region that they pick up a lot of spicy stuff, right? So it's a little bit of a torture for you coming from California, having such great spices, going back there and you don't have any. You have to go buy your bottle, hot sauces and take them back home.
Try the food I miss of California so much here, but that's sort of, I guess, the adventure. Wine opens up so many doors to travel, to cooking, to food, to exploration. It really does have this way of just, everyone, like, drinking wine's lovely, but drinking wine with food and exploring the different combinations that you can find, because not many people would think to pair rosé with spicy food. That right. Might not be something, because we're always told, Riesling goes really well with spicy food, right? Yeah, absolutely, it does. But also, what about this? And so having kind of a vehicle to explore different foods and food pairing is so much fun. It's part of what I love about wine.
Yeah, and I think now, like I've paired this also, your Sauvignon Blanc, with a ceviche. So having a nice ceviche, obviously the cilantro, the red onions, the tomatoes, have all these complements, and obviously the chilies, because I do habanero and serrano on it. It's it's very well balanced. And I think nowadays, when I like to talk to a lot of the Latino winemakers and so forth, that's the agenda they're pushing. Like, hey, you could pair it with this, not just with a charcuterie board. And people think sometimes it's very intimidating when you go to some places and it's like, there's a charcuterie board, all these cheeses, and they may not even like cheeses, but they're saying this is what you have to drink it with to enjoy it. That's not the case, right? I think it's really just, like you said, being open-minded, really explore your palate with the inventory of wine that you buy, right? And see what works and doesn't work. And then you're going to find what are your top 10 wines that are your go-tos, right?
Exactly. And that's what we want to be, something that people feel comfortable, enjoying it. The sort of the Bordelais way of life is, we're very close to the sea. So people spend pretty much every weekend at the ocean, just basking in the sun when it's sunny, or even, on cold days, people go out there just to be by the sea, eat oysters, and life is just really slow here. Friends are important, family's important, food's very important, and wine's important. And so just sort of trying to encapsulate those feelings in the wine was sort of our main goal. And again, having food-friendly wine was super important. And it's just, it's good to know that you were able to find those characteristics in the wine. So thank you.
Yeah. So what plans do you have in the future? Are you going to remain in France, or are you looking to travel out and relocate?
I think I love traveling. I would, absolutely love to go explore the world. I think for the next number of years we'll be here. Our kids are very happily in the French school system. In fact, I think my youngest son is forgetting how to speak English. So we'll be here at least for a little while, but always open to options. But we have some fun ideas for the future with French Blue, some other wines to kind of complete the set. There's some things in the works, so
that's good.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to hear from those and see what becomes of it. Obviously, you've created great things, and we look forward to see what the future brings. You're a very lucky person, so whatever you come up with is going to be excellent as well. So.
Well, we're very fortunate to be paired up with the Mondavi family. It's an incredible opportunity for us to partner with such an absolutely monumental, huge family that just has so much history. So we're very honored that they chose to endorse our brand. So
I'm glad you partnered with such a great company. Beautiful history, great family driven.
I'm hoping that we can get Angelina and some of the family members over here to start working with us directly on the French Blue. I think that'd be really fun to really connect the two continents together and have us all work together on the blend. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds.
Great. And one of my ending questions is always, what do you drink besides your own brands, French Blue? What's a go-to wine for you?
Oh, I thought it was anything. I was going to say beer.
Or beer. What do you drink outside your brand?
Well, during harvest, strictly beer. But honestly, the cool thing about living here in France is having access to some really small regions that I didn't really even know about prior to living here. Just really, really small production stuff. I've been on Beaujolais kick lately. Metras is not is well known, but it's just, if I could have a dream wine, it would be some Beaujolais. The wines from the Savoie are also stunning. Very different. Cool thing about them is they don't travel so well. So getting to live in the country where they're made really helps, because a lot of them are kind of like a more natural style wine. And so having direct access to those is pretty cool. But I'm going to stick with my original answer of beer for now.
That's great. Well, thank you again, Stephanie, for your time and telling me about your history, your passions, and how your travels got you to France. And for now, you're still going to remain in France. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome.